Welcome to the Irn-Cru podcast, an American football podcast made in Scotland. It's still the off-season, so this is your weekly news crew. Joining me tonight, fresh from media duties at the IFAF Under-20 World Champion, it's the Cru's international correspondent. It's Stu, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing really well. My voice has gone a bit. I think probably from cheering too hard at the championships the last few days, and then screaming a bit at Scotland losing on Sunday, and then cheering again on Tuesday or Monday night when Canada won. Or sorry, Tuesday night when Canada won against Peru at the Copa. So yeah,
You're multiple sports and multiple competitions all at the one time here.
My brain feels like it's been cut up into a million little bits because I'm trying to follow everything at once. But I'm just about.
Excellent. Great to have you on as always. It's been a while since I've had you on the Thursday Crew, so good to have you back. You've had a wee holiday for podcasting.
I have, and I mean that's how I think I've been just gearing up for this. This period of sports. Like we in Edmonton, we just had the Oilers going all the way to Game 7, Stanley Cup final. So that's obviously been a huge thing in this city, and that kind of sucked up all the life out of everybody, and we all just invested all of ourselves into that and following the team. And they did amazingly well, even though they came up just a little bit short. But fair play to the Panthers. After they went 3-0 up in the first 3 games, I thought it was probably going to be a sweep. So the fact that the Oilers made it a competition, that's obviously, that now means the last 3 years in a row, the Oilers have lost to the Cup champions in the end. So when they lose, they seem to only lose to the best. So that's at least they're trending in the right direction. We're getting fun each time.
Just need to flip it over to the other side next time.
Definitely.
Folks listening, watching, thanks for joining us tonight. If you are watching us or listening to us live, get the questions into us. We're live on YouTube, Instagram, on Twitter, so get that fired across to us. So, as always, we'll kick off with our kick-off question. A wee topic that we'll cover in a wee bit more detail later on in terms of new stadiums and stadium renovations that are going on at the moment. As a Bengals fan, if you could pick one thing to have in your stadium that you don't currently have, what would it be and why?
Okay, well, I know there's a bunch of people would probably say a roof. I kind of like teams that play in places that can be a little bit colder or a lot colder to not have roofs. Like I think, the fact that the Vikings, as good as their stadium is, that they don't have the capability to have a snow game anymore is doing the league a disservice. But that's another matter here. But no, what would I'm stalling for time to think of something basically. But so if we think about it, our whole team is Tiger themed. So I put it to you, what about when Joe Exotic finally gets out of jail? If we have Joe Exotic North and he sets up a tiger sanctuary at in Cincinnati, and that's what Tigers.
So you want a tiger sanctuary, and basically a bit like the Dolphins with the actual dolphin. You want tigers in your stadium.
Yeah, but obviously we need to make sure we'll have people from PETA and from other animal rights places to make sure everything's fine and above board. But I'd be okay with a zoo or something like that, or a safari park.
What you need to do is you need to rotate them, so when you've got your white-out uniforms on, you bring the white tiger out, and when you've got your normal tiger, you need to rotate them.
Let them play defence sometimes, if we're struggling on that side of the ball, send in the Siberians. That would be great.
That's it. So I was struggling with this one as well. We had a bit of chat off here, Stu, and I'm going to credit you with this answer because it was a brilliant answer. AT&T has a lot of things in it. I mean, it's also one of them. It's been around for a while now. It's maybe not one of the most modern stadiums, but it's Jerry World, so I think he's probably got everything in that you can think of it. Inspired by your answer and also a trip to Las Vegas, I would love us to have a roller coaster that goes round the outside of the stadium, just like New York, and Vegas. Just jump on, go on a roller coaster around the stadium and back to your seat again. I think that would be genius. Like you said, it would be very apt to the Cowboy season if you've got a roller coaster at the AT&T because there are ups and downs we go through. A roller coaster won't crash at the end of the season like we normally do, so that would be another thing.
I was about to say, I don't know if anybody's ever played Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah.
That for back in the day, I do remember there would be sometimes when you just say, screw it, I'm going to make a roller coaster that has no end and it just launches the train and the passengers off it. So I hope that the Cowboys roller coaster is not like one of the Stuart Bell designed roller coasters from Roller Coaster Tycoon.
let's stick with your team for our next wee segment then. So, something came out, it was actually not that long ago, a kind of segment, an interview that Joe Burrow done, and kind of clip, the main clip coming out of it is that the point he made is that quarterbacks coming out of college are coming from kind of more mid-level kind of schools. Like, examples he gave was Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. So they didn't come out of big giant colleges, and he's saying that he feels that they're more NFL ready because you need an NFL is about understanding how to win. So when you come from a big college, like he did at LSU, for example, you play teams that are kind of middle of the road. You basically just smack out the park. Yeah, he's saying playing in the middle schools and getting games that you have to win and you have to fight to win these games is better for players coming to the NFL than being in a top 5, top 10 college that's going to win all the games. What's your thoughts on this one, Stu?
I mean, obviously, he's Joe Burrow, so he's my quarterback, so I'm usually going to side with him, although sometimes he'll say and do things and hang out with certain people that I maybe wouldn't agree with, so I'll maybe put an eye on that a little bit, but we won't go into the politics right now. But no, I completely agree with him because I think maybe not even just quarterbacks, but that's something I've long looked at or has kind of fascinated me about players being drafted each year is like when you look at just thinking of an example off the top of my head, like I forget what round he was drafted, but if you go back and look at tight ends, Travis Kelce is obviously one of the best receiving tight ends, if not just tight end, like blanket statement, like taking into consideration everything, one of the best that's played the game at least in the last kind of few decades, if anything. He didn't come from a top program either, and he was drafted third, fourth, fifth round, somewhere in there. Whereas guys like the Bengals, we drafted Tyler Eifert, who he might have been he had a lot of injuries and that kind of took him down. But basically, there was another, I think maybe 5 or 6 tight end. I'm going off memory here. 5 or 6 tight before Kelce, and Kelce fell down the draft boards because middle in school, a bit of an unknown there. The guy comes into the league and just look at him now, he's absolutely destroyed, the same as Mahomes. So maybe the Chiefs did know what they were doing with who they were drafting, and they clearly shy away from it. Of course, like if you're taking them mid-round, less of a risk than going early on them. But no, I think especially with quarterbacks, Joe Burrow's right. It's like if you've, maybe not so much that I don't think he's trying to say rule out the guys from the big schools.
Yeah.
The point is maybe what you should be looking at is like, okay, was this person that we're about to draft only, he's putting up gaudy numbers like 5,000 yards passing, like so many touchdowns, hardly interceptions. But if you look at it and go like, okay, but the guy was only putting up 150 yards passing against the top schools, and had all his interceptions in those games, it's like, okay, well clearly he's maybe not processing it as well as, or the game as well as you want against those top schools. And he's just making hay when he's playing against weaker defenses. Whereas if you have a guy who has above average numbers, but he's doing the same thing against the top schools that he's doing against every other one, and he doesn't have the best receivers in the system and everything, well, maybe he's the guy. And I guess that was part of the argument with Mr. Williams going first overall.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, let's put some numbers on this for context, for an example, right? So we'll start with Joe Burrow. In that LSU 2019 season where they just blew everybody away, they played 5 ranked teams in the regular season. You know what I mean? So a lot of times they played teams like like Vanderbilt and stuff like that in the first couple of games. They smashed Texas A&M. So his point there is, like, from his own experience, he's not just saying this from an opinion. From his experience as an LSU quarterback, his words were, we played against garbage teams in the middle of the season.
Yep.
Someone you mentioned there, Caleb Williams, right? So record last season, 7-5 in the regular season. 7-1 against what would be perceived as smaller programs. It was 0-4 against the bigger teams. So they played Notre Dame, they played Utah, they played Washington, they played Oregon. He lost all 4 of them. Yeah. So he's putting up these numbers, but like you said, he's putting them up against teams that he should be putting them up against. And when it comes to the big games, then he's not winning the games. So then it becomes an aspect. And to compare it to someone else in this year's draft, another person to pick up was Drake May was the one I picked out, right? So Drake May, North Carolina Tar Heels, not a massive program. This season they were 8-4, right? All the teams they played were all of the same standard as them, around about. So he's going up against teams of his level and picking up 8 wins. So that's when he's being challenged because he's not got the best players, he's not got the best program. He's playing against schools of equal ability of him, and within that, they beat Miami, who were ranked as well, in those 8 wins. So Drake May, you maybe should look at him saying, well, he's doing it against teams of the equal level. He's not got a massive program. Whereas Caleb Williams, he's come up against the big teams and he's struggled. So why is Caleb Williams number 1 pick, as you were about to say?
Well, I was going to say, like, the thing is even for Caleb Williams, though, I don't want to crap on him.
That's not what we're doing here. We're just kind of trying to put numbers in context to Joe Burrow's point.
No, totally. But I mean, I will say that, like, even Caleb Williams' program, I don't know if it was as good as the good ones he was playing against. You know what I mean? So I don't know if he also slightly falls into that category of he lost to the bigger programs, but we need to look at the we need to look at the stats, basically. How did he actually play in those games? I know, for instance, like the receivers that he was working with, none of them went first round. It's not like LSU, who had like 3 wide receivers all go first round. I think so. You're looking at Daniels and maybe going, okay, well, yeah, he did play in a juggernaut team. He's still good, still, like, you know, clearly has a talent. There's a reason you end up that juggernaut team, but it is interesting, and I do think that maybe people faded Drake May because of his school is the other side point to all of this. But no, I think it's a valid one. Like, even beyond quarterbacks, across all positions, I think that you know, or you can separate the teams that have, like, I guess, good scouting versus the ones that just go by, you know, oh, this guy's a pedigree. Like, he's basically been going through the good program the entire time, so of course he's going to be good.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the point he's made, like, there's a lot of quarterbacks who have went very high in drafts over the last however many years that haven't made it, that have hit a wall and just not lived up to the expectation. And that could be the reason why, like he said, they don't understand how to win a game, because every game they play, they're expected to win and win comfortable because such a big program they're in. So points you can make, making that step up from college to NFL for a quarterback is already hard. But if you're having to then realise, wait a minute, I need to get in the trenches here and I need to actually drag my team to a win, that's a completely different ball game for them.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. I'm sure this debate will go on for a few days because it only has just appeared over the last few hours. So I'm sure there'll be more of this over the next few days across NFL fans and media and stuff like that. So it's definitely one worth looking at to see what others. So anybody else has got any points on that, any opinions on that, drop us a comment on Twitter or Instagram or something. Let us know what your thoughts on it is. Right, let's get to the main part of today's pod. Your job for the last few days has been the Cru's media correspondent at the Under-20s World Championship in Edmonton, in your home city. How's it been generally? What's the atmosphere been like around it? Has it been exciting to have it in the city? Is it maybe not making waves? What's the general consensus? I know it's timing of it against the Stanley Cup has probably not been great either, to be fair.
Yeah. No. I mean, well, first thing I want to say is like to IFAF and also like the Elks and the CFL as well, and Football Alberta, and like all these parties that I've kind of come to know people from, and they've all put so much into the organisation of this and like making sure it kind of comes off and it's a success. And like so far in terms of like an organised event, it's been absolutely fantastic. Like they're playing the games at the Elk Stadium, which is Commonwealth, and then Commonwealth, look, this is like a City Edmonton owned thing as well. Like so they own the stadium, so community owned, and then as part of that complex, we have the Clark Stadium as well, which is right next door. It's a bit smaller, and that's typically where like FC Edmonton, when they exist, they played their football, like soccer games there. But so they have these like two like great field kind of facilities right next to each other, so it's like fantastic for that because you can literally just walk between games kind of back and forth, which I've been doing, running up and down those stairs in Commonwealth. So like from that standpoint, and just the fact that, you know, the teams are all able to get out there and get training time because they have those two facilities, and then there's also the indoor AstroTurf kind of pitch that's like right next to them as well. So it's like, I imagine that having the 8 teams here, there's not been any issues with them, you know, doing what they need to do kind of thing to get ready for games. Now, in terms of like how successful it's been, like, yeah, you did, you know, I touched on it right at the start, and you mentioned it there as well. The city has been in hockey frenzy because the Oilers made it to the cup final for the first time in 18 years. And that's been a bit unfortunate because it's basically just sucked all the air that's available into that space. So a lot of the media maybe weren't picking up on the IFAFs as such. So like last weekend, like I'd say, yeah, it was probably a lot quieter than I thought it would have been. Last night, like the atmosphere was it was quite good. At like I attended the Canada Austria game, and then also the Australia Panama game over at Clark. Like I was there for that, and then during the day they had USA Japan. But I know that was a little bit quieter again because it's during the day and it's midweek. But there definitely seems to be more people getting out there, and the finals being this weekend, I imagine that there's in Canada being in the final for the gold medal game. I imagine that's going to bring a lot of people out to the stadium, and also it's Canada Day weekend, so it kind of ties in absolutely perfectly. I think for that, Monday off, so you may as well go to football on Sunday, take the kids out, enjoy that, and have a good kind of family time. But yeah, on the whole, it's been really well organised. Everything's. I like, or one of the main things I've taken away from it is just that whole thing of you're seeing people from all across the football community, like all around the world. Like you've got these people that are here, and a lot of them are doing what they're doing for no other reason than just their love of the game and want to help, young guys like get into football and just kind of progress their careers. So it's really been kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, something you mentioned, obviously, it's from all over the globe there, and it's a clip that we'll get up on the socials. You were asking some questions of the coaches and players, and it was you asked the Canada coach about growth of the game across the world, and he was very positive about how much it's grown in Europe with the players. And I think he mentioned was it Austria? He mentioned about the size of it, Japan about the size of the linemen's completely changed for the last one.
Japan.
Yeah, Japan. They say they're just. The sport is just growing and growing and growing. I mean, this is obviously under 20s level, so this is kids that are playing. Well, I say kids compared to me and you still playing this game. Do you know what I mean? It's getting them in there and getting them kind of. And you see countries like Japan. Right? Japan's obviously huge on baseball. It's massive over there. They've obviously now decided to pick up on NFL as well and American football as well. The Europeans, especially around about the Germany, Austria, Switzerland, those kind of countries have always been big on it. But to see a team like Japan coming over and doing so well, we'll talk about the games in a wee second, but the game really is growing worldwide, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, that's like one of the big. We'll obviously get into the games in a bit here, like you said, but like one of the things I've been and the reason that they're doing this, because some people, they. So I guess we can talk about last weekend a little bit, but Canada's first game, they played Brazil and they absolutely scudded them 110 to nothing. And Brazil's what you would call a developing country at this. And so, I saw some of the comments like online saying like, why are they even playing these games? And the reason you're playing these games is because Brazil are new to this sport. And the fact that like they're now playing, there's people getting involved in the game and they're only going to get better if they're playing Canada and the States. And, Mexico are pretty good as well. Like Austria have become very good. And they're that point. Well, Austria and Japan, if you go back like even 15, 16 years, they were the team that was getting scudded like 80 to 12 or like 110-0 by the USA and back then. But now, like, Japan look really, really good. And Austria, like, they've been absolutely fantastic. Well, they've been European champions the last 6. And he's like the mighty Germany, who used to be this kind of like power, this absolute power in world football. Austria's take over for them, and they don't look like going anywhere. And like that's one of the teams that's like I've been most impressed by the Europeans and by Japan. And it's that's why you have Brazil coming. And even though they're getting beat, it's like they have to start somewhere. It's like Italy, and if you look at them in the Six Nations, like when they first joined, everybody's going like, "Why do we bring these idiots in? Like, oh, they're always losing." And now Scotland, it's like we're lucky when we beat them, kind of thing. And Wales this year as well, and like Wales are pretty much like perennial top 5 team.
Yeah, I was going to compare like the Six Nations. Actually, you stole one of my analogy about a different team, but I was thinking more of Georgia. Georgia and the rugby were getting scudded and scudded. Now there's talk of moving and including them and make it the 7 Nations by bringing Georgia in because they've, like you say, going and playing these tournaments and developing their players. And it's, I'd say for Brazil, for example, like see kids in Brazil seeing their like maybe probably talk about under 10s, 12s, seeing players going and playing at World Championships. They might be getting beat, but that's just enough to inspire someone to go and play a different sport because, well, they're up in Canada playing in the World Championships. That's something for the kids. It's kind of like the Olympics. Not everybody's going to go to the Olympics and compete for a medal, but it's an aspiration to get there, to say, I competed at the Olympics.
No, totally. It's different levels of things. And then even like I had a bit of a chat with the Brazilian camp, like yesterday, kind of like they were sitting in the stand for the Australia-Panama game, and I had a quick chat with one of the coaches, and he was saying to me, he was going like, no, because so just to give a spoiler away, like Brazil's second game yesterday, they played Canada's second team, and they lost that one 63-7, but they scored a touchdown, and it was a receiving touchdown as well. So I'm like, it's not just like a short yardage rushing, it was like a passing play and everything, and they were just like, no, this has been the best experience for us ever. And all the kids just seemed like they're like on fire, like electric, just like happiest kids in the world, because they're like, no, we got to come here and we're playing against, and like, you know, some of these guys are going to play in the NFL and the CFL. As well is like, remember the NFL started to go there now.
Yeah,
games started to grow in Europe, like through this same thing. So it's like, you know, I can imagine like in a few years, maybe in the next decade, you're going to start having Brazil pushing at these tournaments, and maybe you're going to have more Brazilian players playing in the NFL. It's like that's how this happens, and it's the whole, you know, this is for IFAF, and who, you know, they're obviously running flag football at the Olympics and stuff too, but they're growing the game, and that's, you know, that's the thing I've really liked about this, is just seeing how they're doing that and how positive everybody is about it as well. So
yeah. I mean, something I was talking to my Gav yesterday was more about the NBA thing and how they're going. Players now from all over the world are making it to the NBA. First two players going to the draft, like a French player going #1 last year and this year.
Yeah.
The NFL now with the academy, especially in the UK, they've got one set up in Nigeria as well. International players are now getting a chance to go and play in the NFL without going through American colleges. Not, it used to be previously you had to go through, you get the scholarship, which for some countries that's impossible to get to that point in your life to be able to go and do that. The NFL is now expanding and realizing we go out to these countries and the players that we can get, and they're properly investing in it as well. Like they've got also you and you're going and doing the Nigeria Academy. It's not they're just kind of doing it as a token gesture. They are properly going for it. So there's probably a load of players in South America that don't get that opportunity. So you say Brazilian players going to that, kind of getting them the experience. It might give them the kind of boost to go and try and do this long term. So from that point of view, I think it's excellent.
totally.
There you go. Sorry.
No, just ask your question. I was going to mention something about Panama, but we'll probably get to that.
Go for it. No, go for it. Go. On you go.
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, I mean, that's the thing too, is like even on Panama's side, like Panama, they're Central American, and they have, and I was kind of alluding to earlier, like Mexico are normally pretty good at these tournaments as well. Just unfortunately, they weren't able to make it up this year, and that's why Canada had two teams in it. Kind of thing, because usually Mexico would have had that other Canadian slot, but like on the Panama side as well, like as much as like they played the States in their first game, and a few things transpired against them, like that kind of worked out. They ended up their flights got delayed and ended up getting diverted to Calgary. So by the time they got into Edmonton, like so they got in on the Friday night, like Saturday morning, they didn't get to the hotel till 3 a.m. and then they were playing their game at 11 a.m. I think so. They were, you know, lack of sleep and all that. But like the thing I took away from them was, like with Panama, like sure America won, but they scored 2 touchdowns, and they had a couple. So it's Francisco Saldivar and then Bilbao. They're 2 wide receivers. Like they might not put up gaudy numbers, but they were making catches and making plays, and they look pretty shifty. So it's like I can see in the future, like already, I'm kind of going like, you know what, these guys are competing against cornerbacks and that from, you know, decent US colleges, and because it's made up of college players and high school players as well. So I'm not saying all these guys are going to make the NFL. They probably won't, but they're still part of the best system in the world. And in fact, if you've got receivers that are able to kind of do their stuff against these teams, it's like you're doing something right. So every country something to the table, even if they've been, you know, hammered in the scoreline. Like it's been there's been positives to see for every team here.
Yeah, I mean, for countries like Panama, for example, not exactly a massive country in terms of general, but for them to be able to get enough players of that age to create an actual team, that's massive. I mean, to actually get enough players that I'm not good enough or not is a different question, but to be able to put a team together to go to a world championship for a country like Panama, I mean, Japan, obviously the sport's growing, but Austria we know all about, but Panama and Brazil, like for example, Brazil's huge, but in terms of the sports, not. To be able to put squads together to go to world championships and even just to play is massive. Right, let's get to the games. The exciting bit. So we'll kind of skip over the first round of the games because you'll know who was in the semi-finals as a result of the second games I was about to talk about. So first, let's talk USA Japan. So you obviously know what's going on. I watched a bit of the highlights today. I was massively impressed with Japan. Massively impressed.
Immediately from because I saw Japan play Australia on Saturday there, and I was actually sitting with the US coaches, and I had a bunch of the team all sitting behind me, and what they were saying about, they were obviously there scouting them out kind of thing before it, and what I could hear everybody talking about, like players included behind us, was just how fast and how well organised and coached the Japanese team were. Because I remember there was at one point, and we'll get to the running backs, but the quarterback, like Kobayashi, there was a kind of bit of a play where he didn't have the reads he wanted, so he just took off and started running. And it was one of the, I looked around and going, okay, he's one of the linebackers or the DBs, like on the USA team, and he just straight away was saying, like, I want to know what that guy's 40 time is, because he's like, I think he might be faster than any of us.
Yeah.
Well, and like, but yeah, anyway, that precursor to what was to come in the game.
Yeah, one of the things you said there about speed, obviously the players were fast, but I noticed with the Japanese team how quick and aggressive their D was. They were all over, they were all over the Americans every time there was a play. The linebackers, the cornerbacks are so quick and so aggressive.
That's my kind of big takeaway with the Japanese defense is their ability to read what's about to happen or what's happening as it happens, and then like basically swarm and put pressure on where the ball is going to. They never seem to get caught. Because same thing against Australia, it was even more so, but it was rare for them to get caught with like the ball heading to a zone where it was only one pair, like basically man coverage. Like they seem to always have that person appear in support, and sometimes it wasn't even one guy appearing in support. It was literally like four guys tackling the ball cat. And you're right, they get there because like it's. And the thing too is like kind of people kind of go, oh, Japan, maybe they're not the biggest. Like they have some big dudes on that team, kind of thing. So other thing the Americans were saying against Australia at the weekend about their offensive line was, I remember them talking about it. It was the O-line guys I was talking to and their coach. And I was asking what they thought of the Japanese line, and one of the things they were saying, I need to look up his name, but he's number 71, and it was like one of the younger dudes was just like, oh yeah, that number 71. He's like, got some dog in him, kind of thing. He's like, he's a player, kind of thing. I think he's one of the, I think he's a right guard, number 71 for Japan. But and then I started focusing on him as they're watching, and I was like, oh yeah, I can see it. It's like he wasn't doing it, there's nothing dirty, but like he had good hands and good kind of explosive punch from what I could see from the stats. I'm going, it's interesting how all these young guys, they're able to, I'm going off the game here again, but like I loved how they were able to like watch and pick up on things. Like even just like, the younger players, not just the coaches kind of thing. It's they're all already like there with the game. I think so than I'll ever kind of thing. And it's
I mean that is one of the sorry, there you go.
I was gonna say they could all be scouts or like, coaches or whatever eventually as well. So you can see the men are already. But
you say something about picking up this sport. I mean, the basics of this sport: run the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball. That's anybody can pick that up, right? But will you say some of the Japanese players, for them to pick up the understanding of the game, of a sport that is effectively alien to them, to understand it at that level already is incredibly and very impressive.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that's one thing we should probably say. So the game actually ended yesterday. It was 41, or Japan 41, USA 20. And, just looking at the stats of it, it's like, so Japan had 303 yards of rushing offense and 131 yards passing. And that's, that whole kind of mental understanding of the game. They have these two running backs. It's Minobi and Kobayashi. Their vision like their ability to find seams and like just know where to go. The line's obviously moving and pushing things open for them, but the amount of times that they seem to get like 8-9 yards on a rush, or like at least beyond 5, it's almost every single run, and it's like they're running and they're just so quick as well. But they just seem to always kind of get those extra few yards in the tackle. But they seem to identify really early where they're going to go. So I'd be interested in seeing, as we've seen in the NFL, it's like there seems to be a lot more smaller, quick running backs are now starting to make. Watch like guys like A-Chain and that with the Finns. So I could see like, those two guys have really impressed me in this tournament. So yesterday, sorry, Kobayashi is the quarterback. I meant Uri-Shibara.
Uri-Shibara, he was ridiculous. When I was watching the highlights, he's the first number I put down on my sheet straight away. Number 2, like his numbers yesterday: 117 carries for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's averaging nearly over 9 yards a carry.
Totally. I mean, I'm thinking
ridiculous.
It's like it's nuts. Like, but then even Minobi, it's like he was 72 yards and a touchdown as well. I don't know how many carries you've got there.
11. So he's over just under 7 yards a carry as well.
And this is against the States, like who, I mean, honestly, their D-line and their linebackers are huge compared to most of them, and they're still doing that amount of damage.
Yeah, to compare that to the US running back, so the main running back was Alston for them, number 5. Yeah. He had 11 carries for 101 yards, right? But one of his carries was 87 yards.
Oh yeah, that's it. So, like he did that big one that he ripped off or whatever. Like,
so he basically got 10. Apart from that, he's got 10 carries for 14 yards. Do you know what I mean? This is a guy you say he's playing at probably a decent level at high school or college. To 10 rushes for 14 yards that's just not good enough at all. But I mean, they're kids, and I'm not trying to slate them here. Do you know what I mean? But when you compare it to someone who's not their national game, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, because I mean that's like looking at the USA stats. Like, yeah, they still had like 204 yards of rushing. So I think Alston was the one that had the most, but I think they kind of tried to spread the rushing out a bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, so that does factor into it as well. So we're not saying that the Americans, right? Because I did still go like they still managed to move the ball a bit by rushing kind of thing, and they also did have 271 yards passing. But I mean, really thinking about the actual game in its entirety, though, like where it was won and lost was the first quarter. Because I mean, right off the hop, the States had that interception, and then ended. Obviously Japan scores the touchdown, and then there was the fumble in the end zone.
That was mental.
Lineback, because it was a really good punt because it put them the Americans all the way back on like their 2-yard line, and then I forget who the backer was that got it, but Japan basically.
Oh, do you know that? I took that note. It was. I'll come back to you. Keep going.
Sure that they bring like that basically forced it. They ended up with that. So anyway, Japan ended up 3 scores up in that first quarter, and it was they were sitting. I think they missed one of the PATs. So they were sitting 20-0. Yeah. End of the first.
Going back, it was Higashi, number 51, to get the touchdown, the fumble touchdown. Yeah, like you said, 20-0 at the end of the first quarter. The Americans then never won another quarter. No, the team was behind, so I think it was 20-0, then 7-7, 7-6, 7-7. I think it was.
Yeah, so it was even the way. So it wasn't that it's just one of these things where it was almost as if America, like Japan, just came in like going, we're going to go as high intensity as we can from the word go, and then that way if we get, and they basically managed to run up the score, and then after that they just saw it, and that also kind of comes into why when I'm saying Japan only had 131 yards passing, and of that, Kobayashi, who was the starting quarterback, he had 100 yards in one passing team. And for him though, it was Japan just did so well at the game management after that, and that's why there's so much rushing as well, because they were just like so far ahead, just run the clock, and they did it.
It's the game plan you see regularly in the NFL, wasn't it? It's like get up and then just run the clock. They executed the game plan to perfection.
Perfectly, and that's the thing is like the coaching is right there, or it's you can see it's elite, because it's not as if they're coaching against mugs kind of thing, because it's like a lot of these coaches at these teams, they've all either had like NFL experience, or they're ex-CFL head coaches, or they've been involved in systems like that, or they've been in NFL Europe like as well, either as players or so it's like Japan's coaches. I'm very impressed with them.
Right, so let's move on. So Canada, first team into the gold medal match. So next up we had Canada against Austria. So what's the highlight of this? Sorry?
So you said Canada in, but Japan were the first team in.
Sorry, Japan first team in, second semi-final, Canada against Austria. This was a much more even game to watch it, like even just in the highlights. Someone I want to highlight first is Michael Szabo, the Austria quarterback. He's got a bit of talent, hasn't he?
Michael Szabo is absolutely like from what I saw of him either the weekend and then again yesterday. He's fantastic. Like him and Kimmel, the wide receiver. Yeah. Kimmel, I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
It was Kimmel, yeah.
Apologies. I think it's Kimmel, but those two have like such a great connection as well. But Szabo, he's heart and soul of that, as you would expect, a quarterback, but he's heart and soul of that Austrian offense. And the amount of times he's like putting the ball into, like he seems to, if he's passing it, he's always putting it into a position where somebody can make a play, whether they catch it or not, kind of thing. It's like he's giving them a chance. And he's also kind of good at running the ball himself. He's not in terms of the quarterbacks that I've kind of met or kind of spoke to this weekend, he's not the tallest of the group out there. So he kind of reminds me a bit of I don't want to say Russell Wilson, but reminds me a bit of Russell Wilson almost in a way, just that like he's able to use his legs a bit as well, but even though he's a bit smaller, he does have a great arm and he's still somehow able to see around his line and make those plays. Kind of thing. Yeah, very impressed by him. And we can get to. I had a bit of a chat with him at the end of the game, but yeah, we can get to that when we get to the result.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, between him and Kimmel, so Szabo threw for 178 yards yesterday. 132 of them went to Kimmel. So he obviously is his number one receiver. I mean, the rest of them, the next highest was 17. It's the next amount of top yards that someone got. So it's clear where the ball's going in that game. Do you know what I mean? But I was impressed by him. I thought he made some really good throws, some really clever and smart throws. He wasn't always just going for that. But there was a lot of kind of screens and dump off passes just to pick up the yards, which was his clever quarterback play, not always just going for that big down the field pass. Where you go?
No, I was just going to say, like, he seemed to always just expand on that, like his reads up the play developing and knowing when to go. I'm just going to check down and dump it off, kind of thing. And Austria were also good in always having those the check down option there for him as well, or taking it with himself, kind of thing, like on his legs. That may have got him into a little bit of trouble later on in the game, but we'll get to that.
Sort of like obviously Szabo and Kimmel are the two key aspects of that Austrian. But on the flip side of the ball, how was the Austrian defense? How did they kind of show up?
They're maulers. I'll put it that way. They're very well organised, and I think you pull up the stats on the flags and the penalties, because both them in Canada, they were getting a little bit. The lines were getting a bit testy with each other, like as the game went on.
Let's see. So Austria 8 for 75 and Canada 9 for 66.
Yeah, this was definitely the most bitty, flaggy game that I've seen so far, because it was reflected in the scoreline, which we'll get to eventually as well. But it was a close game and it was tight, and you could see tempers getting frayed because people were kind of leaving hands in a bit and towards the end and getting a bit pushy. And it was good to see it though. It's the thing, because you're going like these teams both know what's on the line. But yeah, the Austrian defense though, they definitely they have some ball hawks in there. Like, as much as the line's tough and they're going to go after you, and the linebackers were good as well. Like, I've been impressed with it in both games, like from the weekend when they played Canada too as well. Like, their DBs and their safeties, they have really good awareness and they know when to step up. And they're not unwilling to step up and make that play, and they're not just going to wait for the tackle kind of thing as well. They're going to make it happen. So it's nice to watch it.
Flipping over to the other side of the ball, so Canada then, so looking at their key players, obviously Pep Gonzalez, the quarterback, 21 attempts, 11 completions for 104 yards. Running back, Mikel Apostol was kind of their main running back there as well. He's 72 yards off of 15. The wide receiver, I'm not going to pronounce, he's French-Canadian, isn't he, Nathan? I'm not even going to try and pronounce his surname. Can you pronounce his surname properly?
Carignan.
Carignan, I didn't want to say it wrong.
I think because actually I'll need to go back and change it on X or Twitter because I think my autocorrect made him Carrigan.
Oh, it did. So it did, yeah, it did.
I need to go back and change that because I started this morning.
I did think that's a very non-French Canadian name when I seen it. When I heard him talking, I thought you don't fit your name.
He did so well. Like he was so good. So he was 69 yards, like a great number. 2 touchdowns as well. But he almost caught this beautiful fade pass in the first half, like into the end zone. I think Canada were about 10 or 12 yards out. The whole crowd, I think they thought he had it, kind of thing, and he just about brought it down, kind of thing, but just couldn't. He was trying to scramble at the edge of the end zone. He was excellent. Laposto, he's been very good as well. There's another, what number is Laposto? Is he 24 or 26? Because another run back, number 24 he looked really good against Brazil, but
he only had one carry. Is he on Dogby Brown?
Yeah. Okay, because I was going to say, I think that I don't know if he was maybe nursing something, because I didn't see him. The first game he was pretty outstanding, and he didn't seem to run as much this game, which reflected by the one carry. So I did see. That's good to know that I wasn't imagining things there. But yeah, the one thing on Canada though is I'd say even though Laposte had 75 yards, but they get to. I should say we. I shouldn't do that.
You can see it. You can see it.
We had 27, so we'll just reveal the score now. So Canada 27, Austria 20. But of those 27 points, Canada had nothing from the rush, which at this tournament I've kind of learned are, a lot of the touchdowns have been rushing touchdowns, after getting folk into that last, the first and goal kind of thing. But seems to be the way it's going. And so, yeah, that was kind of surprising to me with how good Canada's O-line is. And how good the running backs are on paper. It's I would have expected a little bit more from them there, but that's a testament to Austria's defence.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big turning point I think in the game was Canada blocked a punt and got a touchdown. That was the third quarter, wasn't it? It was 2020 at that point, and that was 17-17, sorry, at that point, and then they get that. That's kind of when they kind of started edging ahead, because I think they then kicked a field goal after that to put them 10 points up, and then Austria in the fourth quarter had to come back. We'll just go back one second. One thing you said about Carignan, there was a belter, a catch into the corner of the end zone that kind of we fade into the corner. That was a great catch for him. And then Austria, who was the wide receiver, let me just put up his name. In fact, it was Kimo. He had a belter, a one-handed catch in the fourth quarter as well. I love that one. I think he put out the 1 or the 2 yard line. So the quality of the passing and the catch was definitely there in that game, and then that turnover. And then something you mentioned, obviously Austria then get into the kind of 2-minute drill, trying to get up the field, because I think they started within their own 5. Zabo tried to take the run, and he took a bit of a hit, didn't he?
Yeah, it's one of those things where they did really, because they were hemmed back on 2 yard line or something. I think they started the drive. So they had a few good plays to get out, and then basically he was trying to get it down the field because the clock was running out. It was 35 seconds left or 45 or something like that. They'd run out of timeouts. So play, but nothing was open. And he knew it kind of pretty early, and he took off, and he was obviously heading for the sideline to stop the clock over as well, but also just try and get them a bit further up the field. He took a bit of hit on the sideline. It wasn't dirty or anything like that. Worthy of a flag. There was no flag, and it wasn't worthy of a flag at that point. But he went down, and you could see straight away that there was something up with his ankle, kind of thing. And so they were working on him on the sideline. So at that point, I think Kimo actually played quarterback.
He did.
Basically, he ended up with. So now they're trying to get up the field. So Jabo's off, so he's their quarterback, and then their main receiver, who's been doing all the damage, is now the guy that's in there throwing the ball. So I just felt for them, kind of thing, because it's because
it was 49ers in the Super Bowl kind of material, wasn't it?
Yeah, these are the two that are going to be able to make something happen here, and they're out. But then he came back in the game, but I think he attempted another couple of passes, but. Yeah, he didn't seem to get them as far down the field as he wanted to. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for Austria, because they lost this game, so they're now playing the USA for the bronze medal on Sunday. And I'm really hoping that Jabo's okay, because I think that's the difference between if they, like basically for Austria's hopes, like heading into the final, kind of or into the third place game, it's resting on what's going on with Szabo's leg. But I mean, I spoke to him after the game, and he was disappointed at the loss, but he was moving well enough and everything, and he seemed like obviously disappointed, but like seemed proud of his team and in good spirits and hopeful for Sunday about competing then. So I imagine.
Yeah, one of the points he made in that kind of post-match was like it was literally one touchdown in it. Is it like they're measuring themselves like we've got that close to get one touchdown within beating or at least tying with Canada, and that's a huge achievement for still a developing nation in this sport.
But going back, like because you mentioned it earlier, the blocked punt, it then became a touchdown kind of thing. Canada got the ball from that. The one that I felt so bad for the punter because. That's another thing where like the weather here yesterday, like it was cloudy, but it was like weirdly breezy in parts. Like sometimes it'd be really calm, and then all of a sudden the wind would get up, and I kind of felt like when the pass got thrown back for the punter, like it happened to be one of those times when there was a huge gust came through. Like he really the snap to him, like because it was snapping so well the whole game. So I would put it down to like there being a bad snapper and like that for Austria. It was just bad luck, and it was like just one of those things where it came to him in a weird way, and he just couldn't quite get the punt off, or he had to juggle the ball. And by then, Canada had a guy on him, and
he done well to get the punt away. Just by then, it was just too late. And the commentators, the highlights I was watching, the commentators actually thought they were going to deliberately take a safety to just try and get, because they were pinned back so far, just take the safety and get yourself out. But obviously they went for it.
It's one of those things where I was like, almost just like let yourself get tackled with the ball rather than get that point, rather than get the punt off, like just take the hit kind of thing. You still
just comes down to game smart, so doesn't it? That's something that will come.
Yep, for sure.
Excellent. So going into the gold medal match, so we've got Canada against Japan, 5 p.m. local time, I believe, on Sunday in Edmonton. What time is that in the UK for us, Canada? What's the time difference?
Guys, if it's 5 p.m. for me, which should be 7 Eastern, it will be midnight for you guys.
Midnight. So anybody that's wanting to watch it, I'm sure there'll be places out there that are available to watch it live. Definitely. Sorry, can't speak. The bronze medal match is 12 p.m. on Sunday, which USA against Austria. That could be an absolute cracker of a game. Both teams probably very evenly matched, what you say. So it's all going to come down to is Szabo fit for Austria or not. Hopefully, yes, because they don't have a backup quarterback. But then gold medal match, 5 p.m. local time on Sunday. You looking forward to it?
Oh no, definitely. Yeah, I'll be there. So obviously, like I'll be doing my thing on Twitter. So if people want to follow along there, they can kind of thing as well and see what's happening. But I believe the IFAF website, I think they show you might have to sign up for it, but they show the games for free on there as well. So you can actually, so that USA Japan one, for instance, that will be 7 o'clock your time. So Austria USA for the bronze medal. You should be able to kind of that.
Going back just a few years, they did used to show on the IFAF YouTube as well, because going back to 2012, my dad actually refereed at the under-20s Worlds, and it was in Texas at the time. And I remember there was a game, it was like something like 3 a.m. here or something like that. And I got, well, watch my dad refereeing in America. I can't not watch him. There was a play, it was headlinesman running down the field, and somebody left a box or something. And so the play goes away down the field, and you're like, my dad, he's a headlines when he gets back, he tripped over this box or something. So they showed it live on the IFAF YouTube in 2012, so I'm assuming they'll do something like that. Failing that, as Stu says, we will cover it. Well, the Royal Stu will be covering it for us on Twitter, all the match coverage, and hopefully some maybe sound bites after the game as well, as we've got from the games yesterday. So Stu, from everybody at the crew, everybody that's watches, thanks very much for your efforts so far at the tournament. It's been much appreciated. It's something new for us, and it's something we're definitely looking to expand on going forward.
Definitely. I mean, I think I had a quick look at the IFAF website, and I saw that they actually have the next Great Britain game is listed. So maybe somebody for the crew could.
I've seen that actually.
Finland in August. I can't remember the date, but I think it's Finland in August. Like,
yes, unsure definitely Finland actually.
Finland though, so maybe you're getting a trip out to Finland, which would be nice. Like,
we'll put it on the crew expense account.
Yeah. Keith, better approve the expenses for Dan heading to Finland.
That's it. Right, let's get back to the NFL for the tail end of the show. Let's cover this week's news. As the off-season is, Stu, there isn't always a lot to talk about in the NFL this time because nothing's really happening yet. Couple of key things that have happened this week, and we kind of touched on it in the kickoff question, was stadium deals. So the big one is the Jags. $1.4 billion deal with the local area to build a new stadium, which is phenomenal. But one of the key aspects of this that makes it very, very interesting is this agreement's a 30-year lease agreement, so obviously not going anywhere, but it restricts them to one international game per season. That's big for what's been happening with the Jags over the last few years in London games, isn't it?
That is interesting because, I mean, the Jags have kind of became by proxy like sort of Britain's kind of team.
Yeah.
I mean, like in a way, or everybody's second team because you've seen them so many times and you're part of that Jaguars folklore. So I guess that's part of the deal with where the cities went, okay, fine, we're going to give you money towards this or kind of help with the construction of this stadium by paying X into it, like the 1.4 billion or whatever. But as part of that, we want all of those game day tourist dollars. Yeah. And you look at, I realize it's over 30 years, but in theory, right now the Jags should be coming good. So they're probably looking at it going like, okay, as a city, we've timed this maybe perfectly because people coming to games kind of thing. Interesting. But I wonder what that means for the rest of the NFL because now they'll be, thinking about it beyond the Jaguars. There's now going to be more teams that have to say yes to.
Yeah, I think the NFL now obviously get that in the bargaining agreement where teams need to go. Is it once every 8 years or something like that? Teams need to go. There's something now where a team, and that's the only time the Jags will ever play two. That they've said that like you can play one of your own choice every year. The only other time you can do it is when you're mandated by the NFL to play a game. So that doesn't even count as the mandated NFL game. So when their rotation comes round, they can potentially play 2 games overseas in that season. But I think now I'm sure it's 8 years. I need to look up exactly the NFL and say every team now. At least once every 8 years, you'll be playing an international game. So that works quite well. The other one that's kind of come out, in fact, sorry, before the Jags, have you seen the stadiums? Have you seen the kind of the videos and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, it looks quite.
It looks the piece of the part, doesn't it? Proper Florida stadium as well.
Yeah,
maybe they'll get a roller coaster and a roller coaster and a Jaguar.
I imagine they would get a wave pool kind of thing because they need something.
Oh yeah, get your Jaguar in the corner.
Yeah.
Another team that has announced deal with the city is Charlotte. So they've been given $800 million to renovate the Bank of America Stadium. They're not moving; they're just going to renovate it, and that's between them and the MLS team, whose name I've just completely forgot. To renovate that, doing some really nice improvements to that in terms of the area round about it, new seating areas, new screens and stuff like that as well. So. There's a lot of stadiums in the NFL that probably need a bit of updating, and that is definitely one of them.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it doesn't surprise me that they've announced that they're doing that, and it's the same as like the Bengals. Also, obviously, was it last year we announced that we've got all our upgrades coming, but interestingly enough, we're going the opposite way from Jacksonville and some of the other teams where they get the municipalities to pay in. Like the Bengals just straight up said, "Oh, we're going to continue leasing like PBS from the city, but." We're going to pay for the upgrades kind of thing, like all the audio visual stuff and the seating to the executive suites and stuff. So for some reason, even though we always seem to get painted as this cheap team, we seem to have went the way of going, "Oh, we're just going to pay for this ourselves." So I'm like,
well, that's why you've got the money to pay for it, though.
North American sports teams who usually want to put everything on your municipalities.
Yeah, I suppose there's probably certain teams where. Obviously, we've seen it with other teams where they basically tried to hold the councils or the states to ransom, and it's not worked and they've just moved. But teams like your Bengals, your Panthers, Jaguars, they could have moved. They don't want to move. They've got no interest in leaving the state, so they're kind of going to have to come to some sort of agreement with the state or the municipality to make those payments, whether it's them paying it or whoever paying it. So it's good to see that teams aren't fighting to move. They actually want to stay where they are. Stay in the same stadiums, not just build the new ones as well.
So, what about Kansas City?
Yeah, I know. It's interesting.
So yeah,
who knows what's going to happen there?
They do seem to be at war with the the local.
Yeah.
they might end up moving from Missouri to Kansas City, Kansas State, I guess.
Yeah, that's one that's definitely worth watching. But surely, I know it's they would hold it at ransom, but surely a team like that, they'll not want to lose them. Do you know what I mean? But it's again, it all comes down to money. I mean, it's not as if places have got money to throw about. Do you know what I mean? And no offense to the Chiefs, but they're not exactly a tourist destination stadium either. Do you know what I mean? So players aren't going. People aren't like the Jaguars. People are going to go to Florida on holiday. So people that are away teams will go to Florida for a game. So we're interested to see how it plays out going forward. I mean, it's can end up like the NHL and the Arizona team getting shifted to Utah just because the state just doesn't want you there.
We won't get into that, but I could talk about the Arizona situation for hours. So let's not go there.
Excellent. We now have a couple of things. So something just going back a wee bit in terms of we've talked about the World Juniors and the kids. It was NFL UK Flag National Championships Day. Couldn't get my words out there over the last few days. So there was 280 kids from 28 schools playing. And the growth of the sport in the UK has obviously been phenomenal. But something going back to when I played flag, they wanted it to get into schools, and it was very, especially in Scotland, they were very resistant to it. But as a sport for kids, it is so easy to learn, so easy to pick up, and it is good for different aspects. So it's not just good about playing a sport. There's a lot of mental stuff in learning about that game that's great for kids. So to see that many kids, school kids playing at a national championship level is phenomenal.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's the thing is like I say, because I imagine that's also IFAF that have been at least part of some of the planning or pushing that, seeing as they're doing the flag football at the Olympics as well and everything. But just fantastic to see how much the game has grown everywhere, which circles back to everyone we're saying about Brazil and Panama and everything of this. It's exciting times for football, as a whole, whether it's tackle football or flag. So that's fantastic. That's happening back home, kind of thing as well. So I'm pleased to hear that.
Also, sorry, you go, Steve.
Oh no, I was just saying I'm pleased to hear that. That's how it's going.
It's also good for us at the crew because it's always going to give us something new to talk about or something to cover. There's always some sort of football ongoing at any point. Even the NFL off-season, we're talking about the IFAF under-20s, talking about flag, we've got the CFL we've got to cover at some point as well. So the more sport there is and the more there's more for us to talk about, which is great for us.
No, 100%. I think we should finally do that CFL thing, but I think we'll hold off till I think maybe a mid-season review is probably the best place to start with that, so we don't scare all the listeners away with our 3 downs, slightly different sized field. That's actually one thing going back to IFA. It's quite funny for me seeing the Elk Stadium with the different sized pitch, and I've had to move the goalposts and that as well. Just seeing it with an American-sized or American spec field rather than the Canadian one, which is the 250-yard lines.
You must have been expecting the wide receivers to go in motion towards the line at some point as well. That's just that mental. And we'll save that for the CFL pod when we get to that. We'll get to all the intricacies and the aspects of that I still don't understand when we get to that. Something we talked about a lot last week on the pod, and it's still kind of not resolved, and it's still kind of ongoing, is Brandon Ayuk. So he's probably one of the biggest kind of players out there that's still a question mark about where he's going to be next season. The latest update is on Monday he had a meeting with the 49ers, and basically he's come out and said that both sides are now working towards an extension, which looked completely the opposite from what was going to happen last week when social media went up saying, "Oh, they don't want me." Was that just a play from him to try and get them back at the table now, do you think?
I think it was. I think it's also you seeing other guys getting paid, or even T with the Bengals. He signed the offer, the tag kind of thing, and he's just seeing, he's like, okay, other guys are getting paid now, so it's time for me. Let's sit down and actually, I was saying it more to just let's get those conversations going and the negotiations going again, because things have stalled out a bit here. And he just wants to know what he's doing for the season now. So Ayuk strike me as the kind of guy that's going to actually sit out the same way T. Higgins. I think day one he probably, we always knew he was going to sign the tag, and we always knew he was going to play this year. I didn't think ever a chance of him being the kind of guy he is that he would sit out the season. The same thing's going to happen with Ayuk. So he's either going to work out the long-term deal or something else will happen there. But I think he wants to be a Niner, and I do think the Niners want to keep him as well. Yeah. The money's work.
Yeah. It's literally all about numbers. That's all this is about. It's not about anything else. He's a good player. I mean, he's not exactly 49ers are like, oh, I'm not sure you're not a good player. He's a good player. He works in their system.
Yep.
The numbers are obviously a completely different level for what he wants and what the team are willing to pay him.
Totally, yeah. But it's just they'll get there, and I think it's one of those things where I'm always like, well, if they get to the stage where both sides are unhappy, then that's a fair deal. So eventually, get to that point.
And one last wee point to talk about going because it happens before we next go live next week is Hard Knocks off season starts on Tuesday, the 2nd of July. Have you seen the trailer for it?
I have, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it's all going to play out. So I think the Giants was a good choice. I think as much as I'm not a G-Men fan, I love seeing. Doesn't matter what team it is on Hard Knocks. Like I'll still watch it anyway because I just love seeing all that behind the. I know some of it's dramatized, but I like that behind the curtain stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's going to be good is seeing draft day from that aspect of it because you kind of get an idea, but there's clearly going to be videos of them in the draft room watching how it all works. And one thing I'm really looking forward to that I seen in the trailer was the conversations with Saquon Barkley. That might have been dramatised a wee bit in the trailer, but there's obviously a lot of it's went on there as well. So it's interesting to see how that one played out without actually not knowing it. It's going to, let's say, behind the curtain and these sort of negotiations in the off season is going to be really interesting.
Yep. No, I can't wait for it. And I'm sure everybody's going to be, anyone that's listening to this podcast is obviously a football fan. So I'm sure you're all going to be watching that as well.
Yeah.
And then all on the in-season AFC North. I can't wait to see how that goes.
Yeah, in season, but it's the last 6 weeks of the season. Yep. So we'll get the Giants off season. We've got the Bears training camp, and then we'll get AFC North last 6 games of the season. So
and then it follows any of them that make it to the playoffs. It follows them the whole way through.
So it could be all 4 again, or 3 or 4.
I mean, it was 3 minus us last time, but yeah. I mean, this time I hope the Bengals are one of the ones that make it, or the only one that makes it, possibly. That would be that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, folks. So Tuesday night, the crew will get something up on socials about the first Hard Knocks. Let us know what your thoughts are on it, what you're kind of expecting from. We'll start with the Giants one. Let's not go too far into the season in terms of Hard Knocks. But let us know what you're expecting from Hard Knocks. If you've seen the trailer, let us know what you thought of it. If you've not seen it, go and find it because it does make it really interesting. Yeah. I think I think there's not really much more news to talk about this week. We've covered a lot of things in terms of what's been going on across the world of football in general, not just NFL for a change, which has been good to talk about. Stu, it's a pleasure as always. You're the usual on the Thursday night roster. You're usually on that depth chart. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, no, it's good to be back on, and I'll be on a lot more in the next. I'm back in rotation, as they say, off the and ready to go.
Off the pup list.
Yeah.
Stu, we're all looking forward to the weekend, especially Sunday with the games. Anybody that's not seen any of it, go and see Stu's content already. We'll get the clips up from the post-game match conferences, a couple of good questions that Stu asked of the coaches and the players. We'll get them up over the next few days, and then Sunday, Stu will be giving us some updates from the games. Really looking forward to seeing how they play out. And Stu, again, thanks for all your efforts over the last weekend and yesterday for the games.
Nope, thanks a lot. Yeah, it's been really fun. Like, I think in future, like, it'll be good to see where they go next because I don't know if it's the winner host the next time or whether they do. I know Canada won it. I think they've won the last one was in Mexico though, so I assume that it rotates. So maybe if it heads out to Europe, like maybe we can get for it next time. I think it's worth checking out and just see. Like I say, my big takeaway has been seeing the people that are around the sport and like just they're doing it for the love of the game and just helping guys out. So
folks, we never really talked about it. There'll be some players in these teams that potentially one day we will be seeing playing in the NFL. I'm going to say that number 2 for Japan running back, he's got a good future ahead of him. Let's see where he goes, but let's move on. So, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for any comments that you've made across our socials over the week. Keep in touch with us. Let us know what you want us to talk about next week. Keep in touch on Stu's coverage of the championships this weekend. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And to steal Keith's strapline until the season starts, the crew will see you through.